1 year ago, the lights went out at the Super Bowl in the third quarter for 34 minutes. What if the power hadn't come back on? Our power grid, essential to our way of life, can be compromised naturally or intentionally. How can we stop it from happening? With me, former CIA covert operative Mike Baker and retired military intelligence officer for the U.S. Air Force and former NSA official Colonel Cedric Leighton. All right, good evening, gentlemen. Mike, after discussing the dangers on the grid after last week's show, the website for practicalprepper.com the gentleman that we had on literally crashed after so many viewers logged on for more information. Are the fears justified?
Well, they are, and then what happens is people hear the word prepper, and everybody starts rolling their eyes, and they think of compounds. The problem is we're talking about the world's largest and most complex power generation and distribution system. You know, it's spread across the country. It's some 3,000 utilities. It's got an aging infrastructure. The utilities, states already spend an ungodly amount of money every year trying to upgrade and improve the resiliency. But by some estimates, you need to spend twice as much per year to make this thing happen. You got to worry about, as you said, natural disasters. You've got to worry about, cybersecurity issues. You've got to worry about physical terrorism on these things. And frankly, we're becoming pretty squishy. I mean, people go off the rails nowadays if their favorite flavoring at the coffee shop's not available. And so you can imagine, you put the power down for 3 weeks, and, you can pretty much put love thy neighbor out the window.
All right. Colonel Leighton, let me go to you. Mike mentioned something about, cyber threats. We've got this power grid, and we've got, some people refer to it as balkanized, but we've got a zillion local power companies that are in charge of their own area. And then we have this organization that's over it called NERC as well as FERC. But what is the government doing to make sure that those local electric companies comply with the requirements and the advancements in technology to prevent us from a cyber attack?
Well, Judge, basically what they're doing is they're holding hearings and taking a look at the way they're implementing their regulations. They have crafted some regulations. They did a lot of work up through 2012, but none of this stuff has been promulgated in a way that actually makes sense and in a way that actually can be used by the utilities in a coherent fashion from A through Z, that you can be assured that they will then protect their consumers. So what we have here is basically a haphazard approach, a balkanized utility system, like you said, but also a regulatory regime that has not kept pace with the cyber threats and any of the other threats that are out there.
But Cedric, look, you were in intelligence, and Michael, you as well, and you're in the military, both of you. I mean, how could the United States government allow this to happen? How could they not require those local companies to comply, as opposed to having a hearing after a hearing, when people can literally hack into our grid?
Well, I think part of the issue, Judge, is that they are really not quite sure exactly what to do. And the other part is that we don't have coherent cybersecurity legislation from the Congress, and that has made a huge difference. There's no direction from the executive that really impacts what the utilities are doing. There is direction when it comes to government, but it doesn't really affect the utility part.
Well, that's crazy. You know what, Cedric, I got to tell you that. Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the Colonel's spot on, but it's not as if, I will say this, it's not as if the government isn't taking and hasn't been taking for years, very physical steps to try to improve the resiliency of the system and to try to deal with this issue of cybersecurity.
They can't get a law passed by Congress. Michael, listen to me.
Well, no, look,
Mike, they can't get a law out of committee.
The Idaho National Laboratory. And not too far from where I am is the Idaho National Laboratory. They're doing fantastic work in trying to deal with the control and data systems, which are an integral part and a real key part of this in terms of both whether it's cybersecurity or just the problems that we face from natural disaster. Frankly, our biggest issues come from weather and natural disaster concerns. And then I'd argue that we're actually looking at more potential damage in the short and medium term from physical terrorism as opposed to the cybersecurity issue.
All right, and so said, but Mike, you just said Idaho. I'm asking what the federal government is doing, because Idaho can't control New Jersey, with all due respect.
Well, no, again, my point being is that, yes, the Colonel's right in the sense that we're talking about regulation. We're talking about a very slow process because the systems are in the hands of the states for the most part.
Well, not
the
the
feds
states, the power
can issue
companies.
the
Cedric,
regulations and the standards.
last question to you, Colonel. The military is on the same power grid as the rest of us. That's not too smart, is it?
No, it's not. From an operational standpoint, if you're going to be targeting something, if you're going to be an adversary that's going to go after us, you are going to find our vulnerabilities. And as Mike knows as well, what we're going to do from a targeting perspective is go after those weakest areas. When you go after the weakest areas, you pick things like the power grid to actually find the vulnerabilities and to lay us low. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to create a situation where we are without power for a long time over large stretches of the country.
Colonel, real fast, because I have another guest that we're coming up on. Are we ready for this, Colonel?
No, we're not, Judge, not at all.
All right, Mike, are we ready? Yes or no?
No, there's a long ways to go before we're ready.
All right, Mike Baker, Colonel Leighton, thanks so much.